Hi, everybody. Happy Thursday. Just wait for a couple of more seconds. People are coming in. In the meantime, my thanks to people who have been sending in questions. I think we're at the stage now where we could use some more. So I appreciate it if you have some interesting questions that you might want to talk about or have me talk about. I'd be delighted to take a look at them and try to do the best I can with them. We have one here from Michel Laramie, and he says, I have a basic question about energy and consciousness. Not very basic, Michelle. It's pretty, it's a question that relates to so many people so many times. And consistently, you're always involved with this question. It's a pretty ongoing question. We're talking about energy. We do exercises with it, but what is the relationship between energy and consciousness? I mean, is consciousness just energy, or is it more than that? And he goes on to say that it seems to be that consciousness goes beyond energy, encompassing it, because it was there before energy. And he says, my opinion, of course. We have a very, very big dilemma when we're talking about consciousness, God, spirit. And the dilemma is that there's so many definitions and so many ways of looking at this thing. In the world of, let's say, people who are around just talking about various things, the concept of belief plays a tremendous amount, both East and West. If there is a definition that you're used to from your childhood, you will use that definition. And of course, the way you think of things will be considerably impacted upon by how you have been trained to think about these things. The word spiritual comes out of a concept relating to God or the highest, and spirit is a link between the highest and folk who live on these planes. I mean, related to belief here now, because in Christian, Hindu, Buddhist background, Taoist, mystical forms rather than occult forms, all of these ways of thinking have a way that must be thought. Otherwise, you're not right, depending on what angle you're coming at it from. Well, one way to look at this whole thing is that everything is energy. Yeah, that includes the physical form, the most spiritual form, and cataloging energy is the next thing we run into. Let's say defining energy. Energy with a conscious element in it is often thought of as, let's say, something universal or God-oriented. In the old Greeks, they used that word pretty liberally, and for reasons that they strongly believed, anyone with tremendous powers were considered to be gods. In fact, if you ever read any Greek mythology, you would find out there was some pretty weird stuff going on in relationship to those gods. They were acting normally, just like us, except augmented capacities. And they were making as many mistakes as we do. Of course, maybe none of you make mistakes, but the rest of us make mistakes. And engaging with an understanding that related to concepts that had a domicile, gods had favorites, they lived in a certain place, Olympus. They lived in secret, and they appeared to you sometimes to help, sometimes not to help. This kind of thinking is kind of different in our modern Western world, and I'm talking about relatively modern Western world, because from about 2,000 years ago plus, Christian and Hebrew thinkers and Muslim thinkers, of course, were involved with ideas related to God according to basically constructs that related to angelic forms and one single God. And the Hindus and the Buddhists had all kinds of images. They have a belief in an ultimate level of engagement, the same as we do. But they also had symbols that related to attaining certain levels of growing, which related to spiritual levels of growing or capacity to handle forces beyond what the average person was able to handle. All of this kind of mixture was designated to the East, to the West, to the Egyptian background, to the Northern background. The Norsemen had a completely different way of looking at these things. But nonetheless, they had gods as well. Our dilemma here is quite still involved with belief. The question itself is related to energy and consciousness. In my opinion, there is a kind of level of awareness, one could say, in energy, and it's complicated. The Hindus come up with an interesting way, the Buddhists do relatively similar things, in terms of an individual has a relationship with energy because it's energy itself, and we are all energy. But there's a personalized version of that, which is a coarser level, and there's roughly 4.5 levels of that. And then begins an intermix between our personalized versions and also a recognition of a different state, consciously aware on the part of an individual who has been through coarser levels and knows what that means. And then a broadening into more spiritualized levels up to roughly about 10. It's a method of kind of showing that there are many levels of engagement. Our difficulty with this, once again, is that we always do this kind of thing in our world right now, our personalized world, in almost everything, anything material, any spiritual. Someone is not as spiritual as somebody else. Someone is not as able intelligently because they haven't got a 4 or 5 PhDs or whatever it happens to be. It's a trap because, in fact, being consciously aware in some ways is different than being consciously aware in other ways. One could be consciously aware of a higher state. Then what do you do with the personalized state? Well, some believe that the personalized version becomes, let's say, evolves into a way of being able to manipulate that universal or that flow of force for a positive purpose or not so positive purpose. This is a basic dilemma in thought in relationship to us in the West, because we're used to being trained to do better than others, compete with others for being capable of doing something, whether it be spiritual or, by definition, our version of whatever that means, or good at something physical, good at something mental, a team better than this team. This is constantly in our version of engagement with life itself, always. This is not a negative thing. This is what a developmental thing. This is what we learn to do so that we can cultivate a particular personal system that is somehow helping us to feel comfortable in our own skin, meaning in the definitions of the culture that we happen to be living in. And this is, within that culture, there are huge amounts of reward for being this way or that way, or more able than somebody else. And this is our training. It's part of our belief system. By the way, this happens in other cultures the same way. It also happens in the spiritual world. By definition, one version of philosophical or religious background will be very attentive to the fact that they are more valuable than others. Because by definition, their definitions are better than some other definitions. This is all about belief. This is not about experience. Not about experience. So therefore, this question always, and it's a very valuable question, it always brings up the idea of what happens if an individual, and this is talked about by many, becomes very capable of manipulating energy for the purpose that allows them to feel more superior to others than, let's say, others would feel towards them. Somehow, this is locked in to this kind of developmental psyche that we have. And in some schools in the East, this is exactly how things are. And it is considered that if you have a personalized version of being superior, that it proves that you're in the coarser levels. I subscribe to that one, which puts myself in some middle ground, because we all are involved with this kind of thing. We're involved with, the need to be successful at playing the piano or playing some sport, and if we're not very successful, then somehow we're diminished. It's not true, and it's not real. It's what we have in our minds that relate to a cultural background that seems to need this reassurance that we need to be high in our game all the time, otherwise we're not worthy of something. I guess in a way that actually helps some people to feel comfortable in their lives. But unfortunately, it also has a way of diminishing them in a kind of manner that makes them feel uncomfortable if somehow a definition isn't reached from their perspective. This happens in everything. So we go to school, some person gets an 89 and you only get an 87. Somehow they're just much smarter than you are. May not be true. However, if you follow the definitions that you're through your life, you've been pushed to believe all the time, then I guess you're locked in somehow, and you do give yourself a hard time. This awareness or this consciousness often has been called by many God, a universal, infinite knowledge beyond all comprehension, knowledge beyond what we understand now, knowledge of a reality that exists deep within and within possibly the potential awareness that one might have if a person is really interested in having that potential. Many people are not. Many people are basically interested in having a nice home, a couple of cars, one car, two cars, cottage, dog, cat, 4 or 5 kids, 1 kid, 2 kids, getting them to university. And this is part of our life. This is what we do in our life. And there is no negation in this at all. But there is a link in us that is related to an idea one could call consciousness, one could call spirit, one could call a level beyond where we tend to be fixated currently relative to what we think must be an apex, a higher state, which, by the way, by definition, would not be the high state because universal is, well, take a look around, in the mirror especially, and you will find that you are not perfectly a universal being. You have opinions, I have opinions, other people have opinions, and we are learning to engage with energy that is beyond our perception. Now, perception is a word that is very important in every belief. However, for example, if an individual in a background in the West becomes really perceptive of states beyond what we are comfortable with, then groups of people would not like that person because they're weird, they're different. Unless, of course, they've been defined as able. In the West, if you have become a mystic, lived in a cave in the desert, or lived in a cave in Rome, in Italy, in God knows where, and you become philosophically engaged like many of the previous folks back in around 300 or 350 or so, and more later on, They wrote reams of material about what they thought about what that state of consciousness, that universal state, that God state was. And of course, we take that in educationally. Perhaps if you're interested in that kind of a material, you take it in, and therefore you listen and you regurgitate this material literally because they were recognized as able beings. But many people who lived in caves didn't even read. Some of those had tremendous levels of experience. You call them mystics. Mystics meaning they were linking to a state that is not normally, we're not normally conscious of on these planes, but they had a link into that state. The occult, or the learned aspect of that structure, is that you create a form and you engage with that form. In other words, you create ideas and then you believe those ideas and you try to utilize those ideas and memorize those ideas so you can spit them back out. Not being negative about that, just being honest. You spit them back out and people think you're smart. You read 500 books and, well, that's one aspect. And you are smart. And some of the information that you talk about may be helpful to others. But it doesn't mean you're a god of some kind and you're equipped to perceive anything beyond what you're normally used to. In the engagement of bringing those two ideas together, you begin to understand that there is a possibility that an individual who's logical and has learned an awful lot can also have experiences that relate to something similar to what a mystic might have, and they begin to understand deeper and broader, but they must maintain a level of balance in their life to the best of their ability. That may mean not too able, it may mean extremely able, or it might mean something in the middle. These systems that we all have and have had culturally in the East as well as the West are partly involved with this. Certainly in the Christian background, we have many stories that relate to Jesus coming up with what people called miracles. In the East, they probably wouldn't call them so much miracles, but an engagement with higher states, and therefore they were able to do things that were unusually abnormal in a positive way. But they had one piece of sincerity in mind. They were trying to be helpful to other people. Healing is one method. Healing is a transmission of energy through a system, a human system, depending on your definitions, once again, so that others can be helped by the vital energy or the energy or universal energy that comes through another person for the help of that particular person. This is very subtle. You can practice this yourself. And yeah, right, you're right. We don't do that extremely well, not as well as our heroes did. But it doesn't mean it can't happen. Now, just a second here. The difference in Christianity, if you really read about it, is that the individual who did this knew it was coming through them, not from them, although it appeared to come from them. Christianity isn't the only grouping that had this same idea. Hebrew background, if you really read and pay attention to it in a attempt to understand, it's very similar. There are exercises in the Muslim background to help cultivate that flow coming through. In the Eastern orientation, there are many similar types of things as in Christianity. Priests administering the ritualistic orientation that helps you to be more comfortable and in touch with, relatively speaking, everything is relatively speaking, with an energy that is alive with awareness. Helps you to be more conscious. And they had words for that in Sanskrit. Same in Buddhism, same in the Taoist background, all kinds of energy exercises. They were all for the purpose of enabling you to be helpful to others. That's the principle. If indeed the focus is on the personality, then there's a personalization that becomes intact, and you start to think that you're extra special and better than anybody else. We're trained to do that right from the beginning. I don't know if you had this, but there were little marks on the wall in our house. How tall you are. Oh, you grew a whole inch in the summertime. Wow, soon you'll be as tall as I am, whoever the I was. This kind of teaching is helpful to a child, but we maintain this kind of thinking, and it's an option. It's not bad. It's not good. It's not this or that. It's just what we do. It's hoped that in our species, ultimately, we might reach a level of engagement where we know the difference between a personalized engagement with life and an engagement with life that's different than what we are normally personally used to. And we're honest inside about the difference. We know that difference. Then we begin to recognize consciously a level of conscious awareness is induced in us, expressed through us, about the fact that there are different levels of awareness, different levels of energy, with an engagement with an idea that relates to there is something beyond where we happen to engage in life. It doesn't make us feel terrific necessarily if you look at it as if it's a competition. But, it's not about competition. It's about realization. And realization is a funny word, and it's used all over the world. Realization meaning you become aware of something that normally is not currently in the natural purview of everyone, in other words. But currently is an important piece because each and every individual has the potential to perceive something beyond what is normal for us or classified as normal for us. And that is a very positive thing. Oh, by the way, while living life normally as you engage and not making it an extra special thing, making it something that is potentially there for all of us. I think that'll be a while for us, universally across the whole world, species-wide. There are many still a number of people who are quite aware of this kind of engagement with awareness. They are aware of uh, consciousness, as some people call it. It's a spiritual flow that has awareness in it, but does not engage with us as if it's superior, but engages with us where we are. And this is a difficult one to make sense of. If you have these kinds of experiences, for example, you'll define them personally in a way that you need to, that is based on your own cultural background, often. Ultimately, it stretches the cultural background into the understanding that almost to the point where we perceive that universality is in every cultural background. This is tough for us right now. We don't want to think like that because we're so busy engaging with what's more important in this way of thinking or that, or this experience or that experience. It's a dilemma. And it's one that certainly I've always been nervous about in relationship to teaching some of these exercises the best and using some of them myself and trying to make sense of something beyond where I would be yesterday, whatever that would mean. I don't suspect that anyone would think any differently than that. Hopefully, you would attempt to continue to perceive or grow, sometimes not knowing or understanding what that would mean for you. And this is not relative to definitions that are culturally highly sophisticated in relationship to the subtlety of what's right versus wrong, good versus bad. Not very subtle sometimes. But nonetheless, it's what we do. So it's not negative. It's what we do. Recognizing, honestly, that's what we do here. And doing your best to soften that down inside of you is very difficult to do because we have been charmed deeply into knowing or thinking we know that whatever we've learned all the way through our life is absolute truth. And it's not real. However, much has been helpful and will continue to be. And that's a very valuable statement, I think. So individually, it's important to think. However, thinking runs amok when you have experiences that you cannot explain personally yourself. And this is a dilemma in our growing process. Not negative, it's a dilemma. Makes us feel a little bit vulnerable, a little bit anxious sometimes. What the heck is that? What is this about? Why is this happening? Why is that happening? Our tendency to devalue and defend is huge. Perhaps in the future we'll become more interested in stretching, broadening out how we think. I wonder how that would fit. How can I make that fit a little bit into what I think I know? How can I broaden out what I think I know relative to this other thing that seems different than what I think I would like to feel confident about so that I can be more right than somebody else? Well, you wouldn't do that. It might be an unconscious response, of course. I like this question a lot because it is something that is not going to be answered, I think, well, because everything is energy. And if everything is energy, then there is a continuum of energy and its capacity to relate to different levels or different states of itself. Because you see right away, even that statement is involved with how we've been trained to see things. You know, a mark of 80 is better than a mark of 67. A mark of 94 is better than a mark of 90. A mark of 100 is much better than 99. We do these things inadvertently, unconsciously, reflexively. And I think we will continue to do much of them unless we allow ourselves to pause, slow it all down. This is what I reflexively think, which is not really thinking, but nonetheless, it's okay. It's what we do. And how in heaven's name could it be any different than that? Maybe a good question. However, coming up with an answer doesn't make your answer right. It's an option. Thinking is about allowing options to occur, but still you're growing through you. So the question you answer, or that you answer, will be answered by you in the place where you are, and it will be valued by you relative to how much you believe that answer has to be to make you feel more comfortable or valued in the world. I know, this is just real. Even in science, we come up with new resolutions. We work through trying to prove or disprove that resolution. We go slow with that because we don't want to miss something that might be helpful to take us beyond that particular resolution. People have been doing this for well over 500 years, attempting to make better sense of something. In effect, the level of engagement with consciousness or conscious awareness or universal flow or a concept of an ideal particle or God particle, like they began to call it, and many people didn't like that idea too much because it is rarefied, not rare, rarefied, so difficult to perceive from the level of instrumentation that is applied to science currently. And the other idea, it's found clearly that if you attempt to watch an experiment, your watching of the experiment can have an effect on the experiment. It's not thought of yet is the fact that if you concentrate, you are learning how to transmit energy through a system that is set up to do so. That's us. I think I'm really glad we don't know how to do that at this stage in our development very well. Some can. I've met a few who can. That's honest, I have. And they're quite capable. And it's perceivable. But also we're human beings, and manipulation is still there in us for a purpose that relates directly to thinking that we have a right because we can do it. This is age old. It's not changed very much. for 250,000 years, if you call that the rough time since we've been developing. And usually it's been physical, sometimes emotional over our years, often physical, emotionally involved, and perhaps mentally as well, figuring out stuff about nature so that we can engage with vehicles that look similar to birds and all the rest of it. But also at the same time, perhaps we're moving into an era of energetic engagement, which is not necessarily making me feel very comfortable. Because if an individual can manipulate energy purposefully for their own minor purposes, young purposes, relative to their own belief in relationship to how valuable they are, without attempting to engage with higher states beyond their own personal idea, which is what we do often. You have to admit that this may be true for us at this stage of our development. Then our species will grow rather slowly if it can survive. But we are moving. And these terms will become broader in their definitions. But in the meantime, they will be harsher by definition. People will support a definition, and this is more right than anybody else's definition. It's what we do normally. Anytime there is change, there is a battle against change. This is just a fundamental. It's not a negative thing to the species. It's a fundamental interaction with internal development, psychological development, mental development, emotional development, physical understanding. That brain of ours is much more capable than we even understand. Even if you read a number of neurological interesting books, it's still rudimentary in its, no offense to anybody, in its ability to understand a movement within the system that can transmit energy at a great distance, by 10,000 miles, and have it recognized and understood by others. Well, sounds like science fiction, but nonetheless, there are some who can already do this. And they do not want to be recognized as able to do this because of the way we treat people that we're nervous about. It's a part of the human species at this stage in its development. No offense to anybody. Fair enough. Thank you, Michelle. It's a very interesting question. Perhaps I didn't answer it the way you wanted me to, but nonetheless, I thank you for the question nonetheless. We have another question not along the same lines, but if you think of this in terms of energy, think of this, and from where we are now, we use intensity or energy to get what we need or what we believe we need, or think the way we need to think to be us the way we believe we need to be. All definitions of what a human should be versus some other human being, perhaps. That's a bit young. No offense, but it is young, all of us. Here's a question from Donna Voldness. I had a different level of experience at the beginning of the seminar last Saturday. This is it. July 19th, she wrote this. Saturday morning. Right before you started talking, I suddenly felt like there was a little bit of time where I couldn't think, nor could I seriously make sense of anything you started to say, you were saying. And that is an aspect of growth. If you're used to engaging intellectually, normally, like we all do, then suddenly there is a little link with mind, different than brain, different than how we use brain and our intellectual capacities. Mind is a state, a little, I'm calling it that. It's a definition I know. Uh, Beyond what we're used to, it quiets the emotional mind down, literally, and it makes the mind, the brain inside, you perceive it as being empty ish at first, later, more empty than ish. And that is an experience that is very difficult to explain. But if you experience it, not verbally and not talking about experience it, but actually experience it, then you begin a slightly different journey. It affects the solar plexus, it affects the heart center, also affects the brow, also affects all of and the throat center, affects all the centers actually, shifts something inside the personalized psyche. Now, let me just read this. Some part of my mind felt how both the heart center and solar plexus were very strong. Strong is relative to an individual who experiences whatever they experience at any given time. Fair enough? Okay. Especially the solar plexus, real, which was making me somewhat anxious. If there is something different or new, there is a kind of anxiousness that begins to occur. This occurs in I would say almost every time there is something different. Sometimes it's very perceivable. Sometimes for some, it's not perceivable. They just act anxious and they don't know what's going on. Some part of my mind, she says, realized that I could use the heart center to help calm down the solar plexus, enough so it wouldn't overwhelm me or others. Good thought. I was aware the energy related to the heart center was stronger than I'd experienced before. But remember, Donna, you already said so was the solar plexus. The solar plexus was the culprit that helped you to open that heart center more. Culprit, I mean, was there was an increase in flow, lifted that flow up towards the heart center, which helped that heart center to open differently than what was before. I felt if I didn't get the solar plexus settled, this is part of the anxiety, I couldn't have handled the influx of energy. Natural way to think. It leveled out through the day. Meditations were noticeably stronger since then, but I knew I was being helped a bit differently. It felt as if a part of me that wants to be of service stepped in and a flow guided me. So that's the link with that other state. Now, it may disappear and then may come back. Why it does that, it's not because you did something bad and it disappeared. All that kind of thinking is related to how some people have defined the world. What happens is this: the personality is set up to function in a manner related to past and present. If it remains the same, you'll continue to do that. If there's a shift in the energy coming through these chakras or energy centers, literally, usually unperceivable by most, but can be perceived through the personality interaction or quite physically, because there is an energy field around us and a number of fields that all have chakras in them. I'll just say that. You can yell and scream later. But what begins to happen is that link that comes in, that flow that comes in these chakras, literally stretches as you're able to handle it a little bit better and opens a little bit more, and then allows that opening, that stretch, to soften down a bit. When it softens down, you could, there's a little bit of an opening still there, but you go on and you get used to it by living life. Then another stretch will come and you'll get used to a little bit more by living life. Living life is vital in the expression of a broadening that can occur and help you to grow a little quicker. So maintain living life the best you can. A lot of folks have some difficulty with this one and believe that from now on they shouldn't live life anymore. They should just get out there and be involved with not hardly living life. And this makes things difficult for them. I can relate to this because it sure felt that way with me under some circumstances. And no doubt in the future, it may again. So some of this learning engages with a person as they grow. And you begin to broaden out your ideas because it's okay to do so. Learning is valuable. We tend to, once we hit a little bit of knowledge, we tend to stop that because now that's more important than anything else. Continuation, a little bit at a time, is what will happen with these experiences as well. You may notice this similarity again, and when you do, try and remember that it happened before. Reassure yourself, do some self-talk. You can use energy because energy is pouring through you. You're learning how to open the hands. Use energy. Ask for help from a high state that you believe exists. See, belief sometimes can be helpful because you change your way of engaging when you think of your definition of higher state or belief. You shift something inside just a little bit. You don't know it, but you've been practicing making a little link towards looking in a kind of a way for help or reassurance that you're okay. This is not a negative thing. As some people have often said, they don't like that idea because it implies there's something better and more able than you. Look around in life and you'll find a lot of people more able and capable than you are. Most of us are generally human beings, and we function to the best of our ability. There's no perfection in this. There's continuance. Continue. Do the best you can. It's valuable. And remember that when you're engaging with other people, some will tell you how important they are, how great they are. If a person is really able, they don't have to tell you that. They'll be helping you. And they won't be helping you personally. They'll be engaging with another state, and that other state will be operating through an energetic form that you call you to be helpful. Of course, this is my view. Some of you out there may think that you will be the perpetrator of perfect energy operating through you. I don't subscribe to that concept because it's a dangerous thing to prescribe to, from my point of view. Everyone has a point of view. You come to these points of view through an attempt to understand you in those moments, those humbling moments that each and every one has had in his life. don't throw them out. Remind yourself of them every now and then so you can say, okay, I want to make sure I have the right size hat on my head. And try to learn from as balanced a point of view as you can. If you do really well with that, you'll be doing a lot better than most of us. We're just human beings. I'd like to say thank you very much to both Donna and Michelle for those. And we, at this point, I think we could use more questions. And the reason why is if you're the one that has the question, then you're not going to listen to me doing some kind of lecture on something that I choose. It's helpful to think about things, to cultivate a structure through which energy can flow in a mental system, and also stimulate ideas that relate to energy that can help you understand broader. I wish you all very well. We're going to meditate now, and I wish you all a very good meditation as well. Please take care of yourselves in these crazy times. There's a bit of a bump up because of this new strain of COVID, and be careful. Wear your mask when you need to, and 6 feet's not that broad. And if you're grouping together, then keep your health in mind. I wish you all very, very well. Good night. And now we'll just begin to do the balancing and the grounding. And I wish you all well. Have a good evening.